So bags of them are up here in the boxes. You don't need my permission, especially if you're between classes. Yeah. I'm sorry, I know the homework probably breaks your heart. It's the same as yesterday.
My mom made me do all of the homework.
Good. Now here's what's up. Here's what's up. Zip. Hey. Hi. That's better for you because you have to do it eventually. Here's what's up. Write down all your homework for the week. Do yourself a favor. Your notebook's been done for like 2 days, by the way. When feedback's done, I stick them on the back counter. That's like the feedback done space. Really, dude? I put it back.
Yeah, it's been back there for a while.
So, write down Thursday's homework. Go ahead and write down Friday's homework. Here's my advice. Do it as soon as you can. You don't want homework over the weekend, that's lame. So, I'm purposely waiting, trying to give you guys time to write this down so that the rest of the week we don't even have to give any time to plan them. Yeah. Yeah, we're going to finish chapter 3 next, well, this unit next week. Yep. I mean, orders don't turn in. If you know it's not done, just don't turn it in. Get to our textbook. So we are going to be on 322 today. So those of you playing along, let's get a date and a header. And 322, our unit title, or section title today, is Connecting Addition and Subtraction. Yes. Connecting addition and subtraction. So we can just write a plus slash. Huh? Oh, you can. Yeah, we got. Hey, so by the way, we are in chapter 3. In your toolkit, you can be in chapter 3. I have more toolkits for the 8th grade textbook. So when we use the 8th grade textbook, I will give you guys another toolkit that you can use. It has all the math notes blocks and everything. I'm not trying to give you a bunch of stuff to keep track of. I'm trying to give you resources to make your life easier. I know that, like, I'm a teacher and it's hard to believe, but honest, like, hand on the book, whatever. I'm here to make your life easier. That's why I'm in education. So, I want you guys to work with your teams, and you'll realize we're not going to do every problem today. We're going to jump around a little bit because, again, we are on the accelerated track. So we're going to start on 43. We're going to skip through the first few problems in the lesson. We're going to start on 43. So, with your team, decide which of the following expressions you may want to rewrite and why. Now, who can remind us yesterday, or about yesterday, what we were doing, like let's say in B, if we were to represent B, 21 take away 7 negatives. 21 take away 7 negatives. Who can remind us the strategies we were having to use? Alex?
So first you just need to add, say, negatives and 7 positives to equal out.
So what were we really adding into our situation? 0, right? So if you added the positives and the negatives, now I think I asked the question wrong, Alex. So you jumped straight to the fact that to get our answer, we add 7, right? What I was asking is with the tiles, physically, what we do, we bring in positives, negatives, we bring in 0, remember? Then when we take away the negatives, that's when we add 7. So perfect, your thought process went too quick. So you got to slow down if you're talking with me. So 21, B, we might as well go ahead and say, if I were to do this with tiles, in order to make that happen, I'm actually going to introduce 7 positives and 7 negatives, so I add 0 into my physical situation. And when I take away the 7 negatives, I have an additional 7 positives, and I just end up with 28. So you are looking at these other situations to decide which of these could be, should be rewritten. Okay? Have at it for a couple minutes. Don't hold on. Some amount of time. I gotta make sure I still have Spotify hijacked. Hey, it's in your book too, by the way. If you can't read it up here, it's because you should get your book out. What? So if you have negative, like 24 negative tiles, and then want to take away 6 positives, think about it. You can model it. The problem is these are kind of bigger numbers. No, nothing. Well, not nothing is not possible. But like we learned yesterday, even if it seems not possible, we just have to modify our start situation to make it possible. I gotta go check my paper really quick.
Positive roll, look, there's 2 negatives.
Yeah, 2 negatives. Let's do E. No, wait, you can write it out as negative 24 subtract. What? Ah!
If you disagree with a teammate, please tell them respectfully why. Somebody asked me about C, so I'm going to pull us back together for a second. C starts with 24 negatives, then asks you to take away 6 positives. You don't have any. So Bilal.
So if you don't have any, you would get 6 sets of positives and negatives, so they're all zeros. And then since you have to take away 6 positives, you take out 6 of the positives from.
So when we take away those 6 positives, what do we have that has now changed my situation?
Then instead of just having 24 negatives, you would have 24 negatives plus 6.
So then we end up with 6 extra negative tiles. So I can change my subtraction into addition, and addition's better. Let's just be honest, right? Everybody likes addition better. Subtraction is frustrating. They have to borrow things. Addition's just better. I see bad guy, join them together, mega bad guy. Keep working. I just heard some discrepancies, so I wanted to. D is exactly the same sort of thing. Start with a negative, take away positive. There is a corner that I can make it stand on.
That's pretty magical.
Yeah. First you were like, stop making those noises. It's just my face. I'm going to use cards to call on people to help me with the rest of these, just letting you guys know. Give you another minute to wrap this up. Satan. There's this vegetarian food stuff called Satan. Not Satan, but Satan. Not good.
Is it satanic?
No, it's okay. It like takes on the flavor of whatever you're doing. All right, Mr. Dunn. In A, if we start with 100.86 negatives and go to take away negatives, could we do that? Like when we think about the situation, is it possible, or do I need to modify things? I start with a bunch of negatives and I want to take away negatives. So let's make the numbers easier. You start with 10 negatives. You want to take away 3 negatives. Can you? Yeah, because you have the negatives, right? So we don't need to modify anything, actually. When I start with a bunch of negatives and take away negatives, will my number become more negative or become closer to 0? Closer to 0, right? So on the number line right here, in case you have not observed that there is a number. When I point this direction, I'm pointing at the number line. Number line, I'd be at negative 100, point whatever, and I'd come up. So really, we could rewrite this negative 100.86 plus 3.86. Alex?
Another way to write it is 100.86 minus 3.86 because it's basically the same thing.
But then your sign is in the wrong place. So just be careful with that. You can think it through that way. Just make sure that you end up making your answer negative. Because we see the negative is the bigger power, like the bigger force. Here's another way that we can break this up and make our life easy. See the 0.86 and the 0.86? See how this is negative and that's positive? Don't just take the 0.86 though. I want to cancel the entire 3.86. So, to make a 0 with 3.86, I have to have 3.86 negative, right? If I take that out of this negative, how much negative do I have left? 97. Sorry, nobody else used their hand, Tyler. Negative. Because it's still negative. If you only write this as 97, you're going to end up with the wrong answer. It's a negative value. Your final answer is negative 97. Multiple ways to think about it, but if we try to make those additive inverses and make zeros, that's how that easily happens. Now in D, D could have been for done. Alex Conan. What about D? If I have 4/9 that are negative and I try to take away 3/9 that are negative. Or, sorry, I said that wrong. Why did I say that wrong? Can you correct what I said? Do you know? I'm like... So, Will, why did I say that wrong?
Because 3/9 is positive. Because it would have been negative 9/4 minus sign, then a negative sign, but there's not a negative sign. There's only minus.
Yeah. I start with negative 4/9. I take away positive 3/9. If I start with negatives, can I take away positives? Yeah, but only once I modify the situation. Right? Because if I only have negatives, I can't take away positives. So, I introduce those zeros. So forget about the ninths for a minute, right? Common denominators were good. We know my answer will have a denominator of 9. So forget about it for a minute. Start with negative 4. I want to take away 3 positives. I can't. And bring in 3 0 pairs. Are you visualizing this with me?
Yeah.
Now I take away the 3 positives from those pairs.
Yeah. And you got the 3.
So we really gained 3 negatives. So this is really negative 4/9 plus negative 3/9. We gained 3 negatives, really, and we get negative 7/9. E, we start with nothing. We want to take away something. Negative 1.12. We can do the same thing with bringing in the 0 pairs, or just know that if subtracting from 0 will take you negative. And then F, we start with nothing. We want to take away negative something. So we start with nothing, and we want to take away negatives. If I take away negative, take away debt, take away whatever you want to think about negatives as, you go positive. So this will actually become positive 37 1/4. This plus is unnecessary. I just wanted to reiterate that it is a positive value. Questions from there? Yes.
Why did you make negative 37 1.5?
I didn't. So, imagine. Let's try Tyler.
So if you a 0 pair, you start with something like some number of positive and some number of negative, and they cancel each other out.
So let's imagine. Well, I'm gonna I forget what it's called. I'm gonna dictate what Tyler's showing us. So 37 1/4 positive, and 37. I'm not gonna draw individual tiles. And 37 1/4 negative together would be 0.
So then taking away negative, which means taking that away would leave you with 37 1/4 or 37.25.
Take away the negative leaves you with positive. Does that make sense? So to take away a debt, I have to have positive money, right? I have to have money. All right, jump to 51. Try rewriting these. Now, do not actually use a calculator or anything else. First, just try to predict. Really, now I'm going to go a bit deeper than the question asks. Really, it just wants you to start predicting will it be positive, negative. I want you to see, can you figure out will it be positive, negative, and the result without calculators or any hard calculations. If it's too tough, just say positive or negative. But I think we can probably do this. So essentially, look at the battle and what's going to happen. Now, the only issue is those battle situations that we talked about, we're using addition. To think like we had been thinking, you would need to make this addition. So I'll give you a couple minutes. Yeah. Talk to your team first. Don't ask me a question before you've asked your team. By the way, I assume it's a math 7, but I'll ask you guys too. There's a lost paper here that needs some help. Crumpled and unloved. It's 2.1.1, so if you go make sure it is, and if it is, take it. You've now made it onto my Facebook. Crumpled and unloved.
Yeah, that's definitely
My friends and I that teach, we all like post things from teaching. So yeah, I posted that. He made it all done. Did I already check that? Did I already check that? Or did we not check that one?
I need to clean it up.
Ah. Now, so not having your paper is not helpful.
Yeah, I know.
That's not Do your work. I'm just playing. No, but it's also not negative. All right, so Ava asked the end all be all question. Actually, there's two. All right, hey, give me your attention for just a second. We're gonna go down the whole like I'm gonna educate you on math regardless of the standards or not. Scott, if you could direct your body this way, it would make me feel better about myself. Thank you. So, is 0 positive or negative? Also, the other popular question is 1 prime? That's a conversation for another time. 0. What if somebody, like, let's say an alien shows up. They have a different numbering counting whatever system, and they look at ours, and they look at the number line, and they say, okay, what is this oval? What is this, I don't know, he says ring of Saturn or something, and you're like, oh, that's 0. And they're like, 0? And you have to explain 0. How do you explain it? Oliver?
It represents, it's the symbol for nothing. There's no, it has no value. It's nothing. It's just our symbol for it.
Okay, that can be one way to explain it.
Adding on to Oliver, so if it's nothing, it can't be positive or negative.
Okay,
Yeah, the middle
Alex.
Well, I would kind of say it's neutral because it's neither positive nor negative.
So if it's neutral, is it both?
Yeah.
Like if I'm a neutral fan of Ohio State, Michigan, I root for both, don't I? Or...
It's both, but like an atom.
I'm coming around. Notice how like hands have been in the air patiently waiting? Will?
It was like the kind of like wrong side of like it's kind of like the way we say for like kind of a no man's land. It's kind of like it's like how we represent the value of nothing.
But wait, so then the alien is looking at your math homework, and he goes, okay, so 0 is nothing. Okay, he gets that, right? You've told him that over and over. He kind of understands that. And then he shows you this, and he says, but your homework says that this is nothing. That, or not that that is nothing, but that that is 0. So he says, so how are those 4 0? So, be careful, just fixed mindset, thinking, well, it's nothing. Well, it represents nothing, or the idea that whatever's out is equal to in. Whatever has been spent has also been made. Whatever has been expended has also been, like, things net 0 when they're equal out in positive, negative, whatever, debt, credit. When things equal out, 0 is also that representation. So it's not just nothing, it's also equal opposite quantities. Okay? So this alien now understands 0. We need to give our alien a name probably. Steve the alien. Steve the space, right?
No, Steve.
Alright, let's start talking about these. Sky, could you help me on A? The first thing I asked is, can you tell, will it be positive or negative? So can you tell on A if it'll be positive or negative? What's your group think? Did you guys get time to get to this? Have we taken time to do 51 yet? I can't. Just wondering. Different groups choose different problems. You work in different order. I get it. Have you guys not really talked about A yet? Okay. May, I'm using cards, guys. I've talked about my cards already. May, when you look at A, I have negative and negative. Can you tell if my result, when I combine things, will be negative or positive? My cards are not being very effective today. Anybody from A's group?
No, I think it's positive.
But I have a negative and a negative.
Well,
No, who may?
It's negative.
No.
So now I have two different answers, and now I'm confused.
You're arguing. Let's go. We're having an actual argument.
Mina?
Okay, so because you're taking away. Okay, well, how I do it is like the two negatives, you just put them together, and then it's addition, so then it's just negative.
But that's just like a rule that you memorized. That's lame. I mean, you're right. I don't want to like berate you. You're right, but with the new way that we're teaching math, we're trying to very much make sense that you understand why we're doing what we're doing, not just applying some rule. Bouvendier, we haven't really talked today.
I'm thinking it would become positive because you can't take away 6.5 from 1.
So here is my -1, right? If I can try to get it to focus. -1. It is not focusing. Now, all I need to do is take away 6.5 negatives. Great! Okay, take away... Crap. So, we introduce 0 pairs. When we introduce all these 0 pairs, I bring in 6.5. Then when I take away the negatives, I'm left with positives. So this is why when Mina says, well, I really just took the 2 minuses and made them positive, well, really, she took the take away negatives. Because this idea that we want to get through your brain is when I start with a quantity, it doesn't matter what you start with, and I take away negative values, I'm left with excess positive tiles. I take away the negatives, and those what were 0 pairs, now the positives are still there. So what we would have taught you back in the old days would have been to just -1 minus -6.5, and this is probably what Mina has seen. Make a little v, this becomes a positive, and now my problem is addition. But we want you to understand to take away that amount, you're left over with positives. And then my answer becomes a positive 5.5. Questions? So please make sure we have that. What about B? Ball? I know we just talked, but ball's home.
On the way. I would, since you don't have, you have to take away from 2.2 negative 2.2, so you would have to add,
Now be careful saying add.
you would have to guess, or,
Well, sorry, I should have waited to see where that sentence goes. So we would have to bring in 0 pairs, right?
yeah,
With partials, involving some partials.
yeah, and then you would take out from those 0 pairs you added
Hey guys, you're being really disrespectful.
2.2 of those 0 pairs negative, you take those out, and then
And you're left with the
excess
positives.
positives, and you add them together.
And we get
4.4.
4.4. 5.5, 4.4. I think the next one might be 3.3. I'm joking. Don't think like that. But that is interesting that we see this number pattern happen. C, I start with 12.5, and I'm going to take away 22.5. That's like when you go to the mall and end up in a bad situation.
You end up
Dad, I need money. Tyler?
Well, you start with 12.5 positives, and now you're stuck trying to take away 22.5 positives, but just like the negatives where you can't take away 6.5.
So let me ask this question differently. How many positive could we take away?
12.5.
So I don't get in trouble until I take away 12.5.
Right, and then you need 0 pairs.
So I'm going to rewrite this with what you just told me.
Okay.
12.5 I could take away, and you said, okay, I can take away 12.5, but how much am I trying to take away actually until, like, how much more do I want to take away? 10 more.
So, yeah, you need 10 zero pairs and then take away the positives and it leaves you with -10.
I can look at this and say, oh, this will make 0. But remember, this 10 is still negative because it's part of what we're trying to take away and just get -10. If you want to think like that, if you're trying to make those 0 pairs, it makes your subtraction easier. It really does. 10! I start with -100. I'm taking away 98 negatives. I'm going to try this as class answer, so hold on. I start with 100 negatives. When I take away 98 negatives, what do I have left? Two negatives. Yeah, it's in class. So I'm going to try class answer on this. Now, I start with 10 negatives. I take away 2 negatives, I take away 2 negatives, and I take away 2 negatives. Class, what do I have left? 4 negatives. But I could rewrite this if I wanted to. -10. Okay, so really that'd be adding 2, and adding 2, which gives me -4.
Right. Yeah. Just brings you closer.
Ooh.
Use hindsight bias when you said 5.5 and 4.4.
Which is incorrect, right? That is a fallacy. Now, sometimes in math that can be a predictor, but not when they're different problems. Like if we were like looking at a bacteria that was like doubling every day or something, like then we could do some hindsight bias to help us predict, but not like this. Yeah, I like that. Good connection there. Any questions from this? Cool. Moving on, our next question that we're going to work on is 53. Troy and Tawana, or however you want to say that, Tawana, are working with an expression from, now I zoomed awkwardly here. I hate that this cuts it down, so this has the other -2 right out there. It drops it to over there. Sorry, it formatted awkwardly. Yeah, sorry. I get excited and then we talk too much, and Nina already told us 2 minuses make a positive, so we already pretty much did this. So make sure that you somewhere have notated that this can just become add 2, add 2, add 2, which is a whole lot less to write than minus parenthesis -2 parenthesis minus parenthesis -. Whole lot easier. Taking away debt is just like adding positives. So, reason through 54 with your team. How can we evaluate a negative amount of negative amounts? Well, okay, question.
So if you have a negative number and then a negative sign, you can make both of them into a
So, this is saying take away 2 negatives. But another way we could look at it, if we just looked at that section, is the opposite of a negative, or the opposite of a loss, is a gain, is a positive. So if we literally took away the rest of the problem and just looked at a little chunk of it, we could see why that happens. So I don't just want you guys memorizing the rule, make those, because they're right next to each other, they turn into a positive. That's like the rule, the trick, whatever we used to say. But I want you to understand, to take away negative amounts, there have to be positives there, the 0 pairs, or there have to be negatives to take away. That's why these things happen. If you don't have money to spend, you can't spend, like, it's that all sort of reasoning through stuff. Or you go into debt, which is okay. People go into debt every day. Like, swipe my credit card all the time, and you pay it off. 0 pairs! Credit cards should be operating as 0 pairs. I swipe $15, I go -15, I pay it off, I go back to 0. I swipe $20, I go -20, I pay it off, back to 0. 0 pairs, real life. Okay, sorry, work on 54.
Okay.
Just also don't get a credit card so you like go to college. I've read this article about kids having credit cards and it's just weird. Use cash, it'll teach you financial intelligence.
I don't know why you said like
Yeah. Didn't have enough. Oh, and you didn't think about the tax. You came out to you like what, 2140 or something like that. Yeah.
Oh, there's that little right there.
It's sort of good at just writing down just answers. I'm actually writing down the problem too. How we get. Yeah, try to write down some of the support of what work got us there.
Right now, I think I'm at -11.
By the way, is anyone in here like really good at knitting? Like, have you gotten really good? So I will put out the request, and I'll give you a couple bucks for this. But if anybody wants to make me one of these, this is sweet. Did you make this or something? So if anyone wants to make me one of these for my Nalgene, it's huge, and I freeze it every night, and it has to sit on the floor because it sweats. It gets so wet, but it's huge. If anybody would like to make one of those, I will pay you for your time. But talk to me later. But I need one because this sweats incessantly. And I just saw your little koozie thing back there, and it's sweet. I like it. Now, I want some say in color, so talk to me. 56 rows. I don't want just yellow. Yellow will get dirty really fast. We need a darker color.
whoa.
So here's my question. And I'm going to use cards to draw on somebody. How could you explain that product, that multiplication? So take a couple minutes, talk with your. How do you explain that? Thank you. No, I don't. But that's why I have a question mark. Can I do it in my last? 1 minute. So, who's got confidence? I know that was only like 30 seconds after I said a minute, but it takes us a while to simmer down. Anyone really confident? I'll use cards, but if anyone's super confident, I'll take that first. You just got called, so it's not going to be you. Mina. Sorry, I shuffled these too much. I won't shuffle for the next couple days so that we cycle through the stack. My bad. I will not shuffle. Mina, did your group figure out a way to explain this?
No, I basically only know because 2 negatives equal positive, but that's a trick.
Okay, and don't feel bad about this, but that's the problem, right? So Mina said, I only know it because I know it. Like, I only know it because I just know it, right? That's it. I know it, and that's fine. No, we want you to conceptually understand what's happening. So now you said you think you have it, which first off, if you have it, your teammates should also have it. You guys should have talked, but I didn't give you a ton of time. So what do you think?
I kind of said the same thing, like it's a trick. I said, you do this because there are 2 negatives, so you can change them to positives, which would be 7 times 11.
But that doesn't help me understand. I mean, that tells me what the answer is and kind of why, but it doesn't help me understand why.
What if you make 7 rows and negative 5?
Wait, hold on.
But then you have to take out the negative from the 7 and 11, and then if you take out both of them, don't the negative cancel? Well, I'll show you. So if you took out both the negatives, then it would be 7 times 11.
What is a negative number? So we explained to this alien what 0 was, right? Now we got to explain to this alien why these numbers have these dashes in front of them.
A negative number is a number below 0.
Okay, number below 0. Piper?
A number that has a value that is indebted. You don't have that amount.
Now I really like that. Now, hang on to that for a second. Oliver, I want to bounce to something you said. It's how did you phrase that?
It's less than 0.
So you tell this alien 0 means nothing. And now you told him negative. Hold on. I want you to hear this. Now you told this alien a negative is less than nothing. So I'm not. We're laughing with you, right? This is. I agree with you, but it doesn't make sense, right? Like it's when you hear it, it's wrong.
It doesn't make sense.
So Piper, you were saying it means you're indebted.
One way you can think of it is you like number lines. You have 0, which is usually like the starting point. It's just like the value that has nothing.
Hey,
It's
guys.
just kind of there.
I don't want to have to break up your group, your team, but you're making it really hard. You keep disrespecting your classmates, and you're making noises or talking while they're talking. Tomorrow, you need to not sit beside each other. You need to sit across from each other. Maybe that will help. Beyond that, we'll have to change teams. Sorry. Continue, Piper.
On like number lines and stuff, you have the 0, and then you have like all the positive numbers, which are usually plus, and then you have numbers on the other side of 0, because numbers go on for pretty every direction. You can't have this place that it stops.
Now, the alien probably gets it.
You have to have, yeah, you have to have something less than 0. You have to have something that goes on that way. That's why we have negative numbers.
Negative numbers are opposites, right? If the opposite of me having money is me owing money, not having no money. Having no money is fine, but the opposite of having is owing, right? So, I want you on your paper to write this, don't write the question mark, can equal that. Because this is really negative, or we can think about it as opposite. I can then, if I think about it as opposite, break these things apart. If I have the opposite of 7 times negative 11, forget about the opposite for a minute. I can look at 7 times negative 11, and then we can look at the opposite. So, if I borrow $11 7 times, how much have I borrowed? 77. But the opposite of borrowing $77 is having a positive 77. The opposite of 7 debts, 7 gains, right? Or 77, whatever number you want to think about. So, don't just know the trick. You have to explain it. The opposite of a debt is gaining money. Or if somebody paid you back a debt. They paid you every day, 7, think about days in a week, every day this week, my buddy paid off $11. By the end of the week, I'd made 77. Or like 10 back. Alright, that's all I got for you today, guys. Please work on your homework. We will be moving forward tomorrow into 324. You knew that already? Sweet. Oh, can you please bring your bags back into the boxes? One of the 2 white boxes. Thank you very much. The little on top right there. Yep. What's up?